Hi guys, it's SkintBoot here, and today what I'm going to be bringing you guys is a No Man's Sky video. And in today's video, what I want to look at is the PC version of No Man's Sky and whether or not it is actually the best platform to experience the game on. But first of all, before we get into the video, I just want to let you guys know that Community Feedback Friday is making a return and that the long overdue episode 3 is coming on the 22nd of December. This will obviously continue weekly. The series is supposed to be coming back now and hopefully I can stick to it. But in order for this to work, I do need your guys' input. So please do feel free to drop comments on this video or any other video, because I can see them all, about your thoughts for how No Man's Sky can improve in future updates for a chance of being featured next Friday and every Friday after that. Anyway, with that out of the way, we can get into today's video. Now, I made this video not to start a flame war, but to bring light to how No Man's Sky actually functions on PC. And this is because a good portion of the community play on PS4 and are perhaps misled to think that PC is the greatest possible version because of things like mods, yet are not aware of some of the issues that may arise on the alternate version. This is my goal for today's video, to look at the pros and cons of PC No Man's Sky and to try and conclude to whether or not it is the best way to experience the game. As always, let me know your thoughts on the matter in the comment section down below, and with all of that said and done, let's get started. Now, the first thing which I want to touch on is always something which I bring up, and that is the ability to mod the game. Now, arguably, this is the biggest selling point of PC in general, but for No Man's Sky, I think it is a massive benefit and most certainly a one-up over console. Mods like Rayrod's Overhaul, especially with the recent V10 edition, make No Man's Sky a completely different experience. If you compare footage of Rayrod's Overhaul mod to vanilla No Man's Sky, you can quite clearly see a difference, and this difference is most definitely for the better. Cut features, general looks, general things that make No Man's Sky closer to the game we were sold on are present in PC mods, and with a combined effort of mods, you can actually make your game look incredible and so much better than what we currently have to offer. On top of mods that also add unreleased content and missing features though, we also have unofficial patches that fix bugs and shit before Hello Games can actually get round to them. For example, the low flight mod, a mod which has been around I think since 1.1, was only recently made official in 1.3. So essentially, us PC players had the ability to fly our ships low a good amount of time before console players could. And this extra content and variety and choice just helps keep the game fresh until a new official update drops. I won't bang on about it because I know I talk about mods a lot. You know that mods are good for the game, but all I want to say is that until consoles have the ability to mod, this will always be a reason to have No Man's Sky on PC over console. Another thing which I want to touch on is a bit of a PC elitist comment, but it's still worth mentioning, and that is the general improved performance and graphics. Now, if you have a good computer, No Man's Sky can possibly run at 60 frames per second and much higher resolutions and texture resolutions, things like that, than consoles. To my knowledge, PS4 runs the game at 30 FPS, but from comments which I've had on videos, this isn't even the case sometimes, with the frame rate being extremely shaky and all over the place, sometimes dipping below 30. And on PC, this does of course happen. You do get frame rate drops, but it's usually dropping from 60, which is much less of a big deal than dropping from 30. You can play on a subpar 40 FPS, but not a subpar 20 FPS. Alongside the frame rate improvements, you also have the options to roid up graphics. You can play at say 144 Hz if you're like me and you have 144 Hz monitor. If you want to rock the game at 4K with your big fat NASA computer with LEDs leaking out the side of it, then you can do that. There is all the classic PC master race shit that you can talk about, the improved visuals, the smoother frame rate, the mouse and keyboard accuracy, or whatever you want to talk about. This is all present with No Man's Sky. At the end of the day, if you're a graphics whore and you love your games looking absolutely beautiful and the best they can, then quite clearly the PC version of No Man's Sky is going to satisfy you a load more than console. One other thing which I want to touch on, which is kind of related to mods and performance combined, is actually the ability to use reshaders. Now, reshaders are essentially like graphics mods, but they are just not as over the top. They're a bit more subtle, and generally speaking, they're just not that sweaty. Now, reshaders are technically mods. You can install them in near enough the same way as you would install normal mods. It's to do with all the binaries and the internal shit like that. But what reshaders do is change the look of the game. It changes the graphics, and in some cases it can make it look better. Now, the reshader which I currently rock is a pre-release or realistic reshader, which essentially just tones down the contrast a little bit. Reshaders give you desired looks that vanilla doesn't simply achieve. As I said, realistic shaders that tone down the contrast, make it less harsh on the eyes, and for some people that say don't want these luminous retro sci-fi colors, then this could actually be a selling point for you. Of course, reshaders are quite difficult to install. They do hurt your frame rate, and generally speaking, they don't look that crazy. So really, they aren't the bee's knees, but it's still something to mention because it is making your game look better. And the final positive which I want to talk about is actually the Steam Workshop. Now, this is a bit of a funny one because usually with the Steam Workshop with games, it helps the game with things like mods. For example, Skyrim, you can use the workshop to install mods. It does it all for you. You don't have to piss around in the files and the directory, stuff like that. But for No Man's Sky, initially I thought this was going to be the case, but now we know it's not, and it's instead about sharing your bases. Now, if you don't know, the Steam Workshop is essentially like the community hub where people can upload their own creations. In most events, it's things like custom maps. For example, like Paint the Town Red has custom levels that you can download. And with No Man's Sky, as I said, it's bases. People who build their bases can upload them to the workshop for other people to download and visit them with ease. So if someone recreates the whole of McDonald's or the whole of China or something ridiculous like that, then instead of getting the glyphs and the coordinates and going through portals and shit like that, like how you would do on console, you can quite simply download it from the workshop and see it for yourself. It makes life a lot easier, and it's really good for people that don't have the time or skill or patience to build something crazy themselves. They might just want to see it, and the workshop caters for this. It just reinforces community at the end of the day, and it gives more of a purpose to base building because you can show off your skills instead of it just sitting on a planet forever and ever for no one to ever come across it. So now that's all been said, I want to talk a little bit about the bad. And there aren't too many things which I want to touch on here. Most of them have been ironed out in patches and things like that, but there are a few things which I want to touch on. Now, the first thing is one of the most common issue people have with No Man's Sky on PC, and that is the fact that the game is poorly optimized and it's quite often prone to crashing. Now, let me get this straight. This has been ironed out a lot better since when it came out. You've seen so many clips of people playing on consoles and the game crashes when they're warping or they're just exploring or things like that. The game had a pretty shitty launch. After a year since it has released, things have obviously got better, like any stability issues would with any game, but with PC it's still a little bit funky. The optimization is just still a little bit all over the place. Now, this is the problem with the optimization with No Man's Sky, because with some games it's like, well, if you have a pretty shit computer you're gonna get shit frames, but if you have a good computer you're gonna get good frames. No Man's Sky isn't really like that. There are people that have absolutely beastly computers, like very, very good computers, that still experience crashing and frame rate drops and freezing, the whole load of performance problems that you would expect. I myself get frame rate drops and I have had a few occasional crashes, but I think mine are mainly down to mods. But something else which I want to touch on is just how complicated the game can get, how frustrating it can get when you're trying to fix it and you can't really do that. Because of things like modding and changing the FOV, the game is being pushed to limits it's not supposed to be pushed to. With consoles, you can only break it to a certain extent. You can't go into the files and start pissing around with settings and stuff. That isn't something which you can do. But of course you can do that on PC, and especially with things like modding, if they are conflicting or they're out of date, it does cause a load of problems. And I even had problems to do with black textures, which meant that I couldn't record footage for absolutely ages, and I had to reinstall, verify the integrity, install mods to help it, shit like that. It's just a really long process, and not everyone wants to do this. A lot of people are just content with booting up the game, sitting back on their sofa, playing a bit of No Man's Sky on the PS4, not worrying about frame rates or resolution or higher FOV or what have you. As I said, PC just houses a lot of issues, especially when you start pissing around with mods. You do get the crashing, and you get the freezing, and you get the falling through the map and stuff like that. It isn't easy to mess around with the game, and I think that's on purpose. I think that's kind of expected, but it is still worth bringing up. And finally, we need to talk about the PC flight controls, because generally speaking, the PC controls for No Man's Sky are shit. Yes, you can rebind them, you can do a couple things to make them better, but they just don't feel like they're right for PC. They feel so clearly designed for PS4 in mind, and PC was just kind of like slapped together last minute, like, oh fuck me, we haven't done the PC port, oh shit. And this is especially problematic with things like flying. Now, I know I'm just a shit pilot in general, but the mouse and keyboard does not make it easier when you're trying to fly. It just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel sensitive enough. It feels like you're literally flying your mouse across your mouse pad to try and turn around. I just avoid all combat in space because it's quite simply not enjoyable with a mouse and keyboard. And you can say, oh, you can use a controller, plug it in, use that for flying, but I don't want to constantly pick up a controller to fly and then go back to a mouse and keyboard to play. I just want it to be good and consistent across both methods of playing the game. It's a small concern. I don't know if a lot of other people experience it. Pardon me, maybe I'm just bad at the game, but again, I feel like I should bring it up. But honestly, with all of that considered, these problems aren't even that huge. The optimization and all of those problems which I've complained about have been a result of me modding, but of course, a lot of people get it because their computer is quite simply not up to scratch, or they have a load of porn viruses on their computer. You know, you can't judge these sources just at face value. There's often more behind the story, which is why I can't chat too much shit, because generally speaking, it's a pretty good damn port and it has improved over time. But that is my opinion on the matter. I want to know what you think, so please do let me know what you think on the matter in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching this video. It really does mean a lot. If you guys enjoyed, then please do feel free to show your support on it by dropping a like, and of course, if you guys could also subscribe to MZK, then that'd be absolutely fantastic. And as always, I will see you guys on my next video. This is SkintBoot, signing out.